Good morning. My name is AJ Goldsby. I'm a life master from Pensacola, Florida, and I wanted to bring you today another in my continuing series of videos. This is on a web page that I did. Now, of course, I will post the link to the web page, and there's a little box right below the video on YouTube that says show more, and below that, in that area where it says show more, I will post the link to the Chess Games web page that this game is for, and also the link to my webpage where I thoroughly analyze this game. But just briefly, this was a Chess Games problem of the day for April 3rd, 2013. And I went ahead and annotated that game. It took several days. In fact, actually, it might have taken a week or a little bit more. But to analyze the game and do a good job, and I've even gone back several times and updated the webpage. And I think the main reason that I wanted, well, first of all, it was a very interesting game. That was number one. And I love games that have interesting stuff and analysis, and, you know, especially when there's a lot of debate over who made the best move and whatnot. So that's one reason to analyze the game in and of itself. But also, too, there was another very good reason to analyze the game was the opening featured was a Schliemann Defence. And many years ago, I know I had seen it said that, you know, Grandmaster would say stuff like, oh, that's a totally unplayable opening. Masters would tell me that it's a garbage opening. Years, I'm talking about 1960s and early 70s. They tell me that was a garbage opening. No good GM would play that, and you know it was completely unsound, etc., etc., etc. Those are the kind of things I heard about Schliemann's Defense over the years, and I had actually been very interested as a youngster. Very young teenager, 11, 12, 13, 14, in playing that opening. I had studied it quite a bit and would play it in speed games, but I never really got around to forging it into a real weapon that I could use in tournament games. And anyway, I've had an ongoing interest in this opening. But because of the problems with the supposed unsoundness of the opening, I never really did anything with the opening. Well, several years ago, about 2009 or 2010, I started a very deep analysis. I started working on the Schliemann's Defense again and started annotating a game with the idea of making that game a web page. I never got around to making that actual game a web page. However, what I did with this game was the nice thing about ChessBase is I simply incorporated my analysis. I brought that analysis into this game, and of course I checked it with the latest engines, and that's Houdini, Shredder, the new, very latest version of Deep Shredder, which I have, and also Fritz 13, and several other analysis engines. I could go on and on and on, but those are some of the very best top-of-the-line engines. Ribka 4, I did use that quite a bit, and I went over the analysis very thoroughly with all those engines. So you can pretty much guarantee, and actually this web page and this video and the analysis is not the result of just 1 or 2 days of work or even a few weeks of work. It literally is a result of about 2 or 3 years of work, very intensive work. And times I didn't work on it steadily, but I would work on it a little bit and then lay it aside, work on it a little bit, lay it aside. That just seems to be the way I do things. But anyway, so this is a web page and a video. Well, the web page, this is not the web page, of course, is the video, but I'll give you the link to the web page. That's already posted on my website, by the way. And the web page is a very thorough analysis, and I have a lot of confidence that this analysis would serve any player of any level, right up to the grandmaster level, because it's very intensive work, and it was actually took the place over 2 or 3 years. And also to the other thing, of course, I checked it all with the latest chess engine, so and I've used a lot of time. You know, I've done dozens, literally, of dozens and dozens of deep position analysis and overnight analysis and those kind of things. And the other thing too is that a long time ago you couldn't find any decent grandmaster games or examples of grandmasters playing these openings, and I'm very happy to report that that is not true today, and that the analysis of these chess games, this one clearly shows that grandmasters are playing this line. And I'm not going to belabor you a lot with that in the video, but their games were Anand and played both black and white, and various other grandmasters played, you know, super GMs. I'm talking about, you know, some of the highest rated players, Ivanchuk and or Ivanchuk, however you pronounce his name, and many others have played this opening both on the white and the black side and done well with it. So And again, you need to consult my webpage for the analysis. Generally, when I do a video, I'm not going to try to belabor you and beat you over the head with a ton of analysis. I figure that if you really want to study the analysis, that's what the webpage is for. I'm just going to quickly review the game here on my YouTube video. And of course, if you're interested and you really want to see the in-depth analysis and get into that and really study the game, the web page, I believe that's what the web page really should be for. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the game. The game starts off e4. Now, this game was a game between Vitaly Tseshkovsky and Ventzislav Inkiov. They're both grandmasters, FIDE grandmasters or FIDE grandmasters. And this game was played at the Chigorin Memorial Tournament in 1983 in Sochi, Russia. Anyway, it was a very interesting chess game. And like I said, I've seen it before. I know I've seen it before. It was in one of my books on the Schliemanns, but it was featured as the chess games game of the day. It was the chess games problem of the day for April 3rd, 2013. And that's how I got reacquainted with the game and what basically led me to doing both a web page and a video on this game. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into the game. The game starts off e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, f5. Okay, this is the Schliemann Defence. It's a radical move, generally looked down upon by the establishment, or at least that was true in the past. A lot of grandmasters said unsound, or at least, I'm talking years ago, in the 60s and 70s when I was coming up as a I'm 55 today, but as a young man, I had a tremendous interest in this opening, and all the strong players, grandmasters and IMs and GMs and everybody that I talked to and asked them about this particular opening back then. In the books, there wasn't a lot of material either. At least in the early days, in the 60s and late 60s and early 70s on this opening. And in fact, there was an absolute dearth. There's not a lot of books on this opening even today. So that was another reason to do this video. And I did consult all the latest power book, the new power book, ECO, MCO, TWIC, the Week in Chess. I mean, I did a very deep search for all the games, so I didn't miss any games. So I just want to let you know that you can have absolute confidence that I don't think anything really major has been missed. If I left a game out, it was because it was a rapid game, or there were a couple of rapid games. I don't place a lot of emphasis or faith in rapid games that were played at extremely fast time controls, or blitz games. I certainly don't want to use those for deep analysis or base theoretical decisions on games that were played that rapidly. And but all the games that I think are important and that were played at a slow time control, that I have looked at those, and there's links to many games on the webpage itself. But anyway, this is the Schliemann Defence. Very interesting, very radical. Had a reputation a long time ago, at least, as being unsound. Now, in this game, White plays knight c3. The power book, ECO, MCO, etc., continuation. We're not going to spend a lot of time analyzing that, but briefly we're just going to review the main line because I would like you to see that. The main line there is d3, f takes e4, d takes e4, knight f6, castles, bishop c5, knight c3, d6, bishop g5, castles, knight d5. And now MCO quotes some game. It's off the wall. I mean, I don't understand sometimes why MCO quotes games that, in my opinion, have no value at all. I mean, they're not between two strong players. I've always wondered about that particular, how that happens. And I'm not really sure. I don't remember which game ECO quoted here, but I prefer rather to look at the game between GM Viswanathan Anand, he's the current world champion from India, and GM Vasily Ivanchuk from, of course, he's the Russian grandmaster. At one time, he was number 2 or 3 in the world. And this is from the 4th Grand Slam final. That was a tournament that was played between two sites, Sao Paulo, Brazil, and also Bilbao, Spain. And basically, Black won a very long and interesting game. That was the round 3, by the way, game. Black won a long and interesting game, but the opening I don't think was really the problem. White was, after knight d5, White was a little bit and solidly better. But anyway, that just shows you the basic opening there. That's considered to be the main line there, and I did want to cover that. Okay, so let's just review the opening again. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, f5, and in this game, white plays knight c3. And that's a good move. It's just controlling the center, developing a piece, protecting the attack pawn there on the e4 square. And I have done a little bit of, I've been asked in very many emails, hey AJ, why don't you do the colorized stuff? We really like to see that. So, to let you know that I do read your emails, and I do appreciate your input, I've tried to do a few of these. Okay, basically, there's a lot of squares hit. The bishop on b5 is hitting the knight on c6. That undermines the support of the knight on e5. And, you know, you've got a lot of action going on, but it's very, very clear that white has many open lines there, and black gets a good counterattack on the center, and sometimes he uses the f-file for attack. But, you know, I think that basically there that black is the one that has to be careful. But although, you know, it's not unplayable. Like I said, the game I just quoted between Anand and Ivanchuk showed or Ivanchuk. Some people say Ivanchuk. I believe the correct pronunciation is Ivanchuk. But anyway, that game there clearly showed that, you know, black won, and that showed that, you know, A, super GMs are using this line on both sides, and B, that it is playable. But anyway, just quickly review the opening. Knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, f5. Of course, this is the Ruy Lopez of the Spanish game. f5, that's the Schliemann's Defence. Knight c3. Okay, and moving on now, black plays knight d4. I think that probably, maybe a better line would be the following line. Okay, f takes e4, knight takes e4, knight f6, queen e2, d5, knight f6, g takes f6, d4, bishop g7, d takes e5, black castles. Now white is temporarily a pawn ahead, and now the box recommends e6 for white. And white's probably got a small edge there, and that's verified by all the analysis engines. The main line given by a lot of the books are bishop c6, b takes c6, e6, rook e8. And this is I consider this position to be unclear, and that's backed up by the evaluations of Fritz 13, Houdini, Rybka 4, Deep Shredder, etc. And basically, black's got two bishops, and he also has a nice central pawn mass there in the center. So, you know, I think that, you know, the Houdini, which is probably the most reliable and one of the strongest chess engines available, period, rates this position as being approximately equal. So I think that about says it all. And that's a line, too. That's a book line. That's the end of the column. And that's MCO, page 53, column 25, in all notes. Now, MCO there quotes a game of Luc Machanes, Grandmaster Luc Machanes. But that wasn't that strong of a game. His opponent wasn't that strong. I prefer a game between Yuri Korvachoko and Andrei Zontak. Kovacioko is almost, or Krivachoko is almost 2,700. He's 2,666, and Zontak is 2,556. And that was the 13th European Championship. I believe that might have been a team championship. But anyway, it was the 13th European Championship, and that was played in Plovdiv, Bulgaria, round 5 in 2012. And white won an interesting and sharp struggle, 1-0 and 41 moves, although I think the analysis of a deep computer analysis of that game clearly shows that black missed many chances there. And I don't mean to belabor you here, but I think with all the analysis, I don't want you to lose track of the actual game. So we're just going to go back and review the game here very quickly. Ruy Lopez, Schliemann's Defence, 4 knight c3. Here d3 is the main line according to many books. But in the game, white plays knight c3. That's also playable. Knight d4. This is the move that I'm a little bit concerned about. It's provocative. It's feisty. It's, you know, countering attack. But I'm a little bit worried that that's not going to be the best move for black. One of the big problems with this line is that, you know, at least the way this game goes, is black falls behind here and never really catches up in his opening. Now, I have some very deep analysis on my webpage. I'm just going to refer you to the webpage for the thorough analysis of that. Now, here, white plays e takes f5. There's many different moves here that might be playable for white. Bishop a4, d3. There's several different playable moves. But white plays bishop to e takes f5. I do believe in this position that the two main choices for white are e takes f5 and bishop a4. Those are the two main lines I think that probably give white the most hope of coming out of the opening with a solid advantage. But anyway, white plays e takes f5. Criticized, believe it or not, in one of my older books. It's kind of funny. Before they had analysis engines, you'd see some people would write almost anything. I don't know if it was well thought out. And I will tell you this, that in the early days of chess, before chess engines, I think that too many masters were so heavily influenced by the result. In other words, the result of the game would color their opinion, and they weren't able to separate good moves from bad moves. And there was just a human tendency to label, well, if black lost, that means everything he did was bad, basically. And that's not true, of course. And the nice thing about being able to do analysis with chess engines is you can very quickly find the bad chess moves. But anyway, white plays e takes f5. That looks like a loss of tempo. It was criticized in an older book. Yet, everything in chess is not black and white. There are a lot of other factors, okay? Superficial judgments are just not going to cut it. One of the main ideas in many king-pawn openings, and e takes f5 may deserve an exclam. It's the first choice of the new power book. But basically, one of the ideas here is the concept is that whenever you have a lead in development, you should open up the game. That's a good rule of thumb. It's not really an absolute, but it only applies. It applies mostly in open and the kind of games that Morphy was famous for. And I learned that by studying the games of Paul Morphy when I was first starting out. And basically, again and again and again, whenever Paul Morphy would get a big lead in development, I mean really an overwhelming lead, and his king was already castled, it seemed like his very next operation, the very next thing that he would strive to do would be to open up the game and for his pieces. So e takes f5 is in keeping with what I call the first Morphy principle. So anyway, and black plays c6. Very logical move. Black's trying to knock back white's light squared bishop. He gets this move with a gain in time. Again, that move was given a question mark in an old chess book, and it's almost laughable, that they would do that. I think c6 is one of the highest rated replies in the new power book, and it's got to be solid. It's the first choice of many strong chess engines. So anyway, c6, white plays bishop a4, knight f3. Now, knight f3 check. That's the next move by black. That move is slightly questionable. One annotator gave it a whole question mark, of course, but it's the first choice or second choice of a lot of chess engines, number one. Number two, there's some very strong and compelling reasons why that black should be very careful in his choice of moves here, and why he does not want to allow white to play knight takes knight, because that would allow, give him double pawns in the center, and it could be a very bad thing in this position. So knight takes f3 check. One annotator gave it a whole question mark. I think that was a little too severe. The move knight takes f3 may be playable, and what's really funny is when this game was annotated in one book that I saw, one theoretical book, it wasn't even close to being correct, as to finding the bad moves. I mean, he criticized fairly reasonable moves and didn't even criticize a very bad move, and a move that greatly changed the engine spotted right away. But anyway, we'll get to that in a second. Knight takes f3, queen takes f3, knight f6, white castles, okay? And now the informant, when it gave a survey of opening lines for that year, it stops here and concludes that white's clearly much better, and that's completely correct. It's hard to look after looking at this position. I mean, white's, pawn ahead, black's still pretty undeveloped, and black's position remains a little cramped. He's a little congested. And here's just another little thing there with the eye candy. It shows the color errors. It does show that white has a lot of play. It shows many of the open lines and where his pieces might be going. Just going back here though, after castles, black has far from a lost position. I mean, it's computer analysis shows that black should be okay, or at least white can emerge from the opening with an edge, but it's not. At least it's far from being a clear win from white from at this point. All right, and now here black plays d5, rook e1, and now here comes the move that was really bad. This is the bad move, and the really funny thing is, again, the annotator that heavily criticized so many of black's other moves didn't criticize this move at all. Black plays e4. That was just a horrible move. Ignores his development. White plays d3, and now black's getting ripped to shreds. The only good thing I can say about that e4 move is that in the main line, black will get to double white's pawns, and I think that's what he was counting on, to give white double and isolated queen bishop pawns, and I think that black had staked all of his hopes on that one factor of the position. However, just ignored too many other things, that black remains horribly undeveloped and has a lot of the problems, many weaknesses as well. But anyway, bishop b4, d takes e4, d takes e4, bishop g5, black castles. Of course, you can't play pawn takes queen because the rook is pinned to the king. That's an absolute pin, and until that king moves, there's no threat to the white queen at all. Black castles. Now rook takes e4 exclam. The black knight can't take because, you know, this pin here, the pin on the h4 d8 diagonal. This also hits the bishop on b4. Now black plays bishop takes c3, b takes c3, queen d6, and black's basically got to try to catch up in development. I mean, he's got to get his pieces developed sometime. Bishop b3 check, king h8, rook h4. I don't care who you are. White's sitting just, you know, he's pointing all of his big guns right dead at the black king, and it's especially disturbing because pawn on f5 really serves more as a blocker than anything else. It's a double pawn, so its value is not that great, but its main value to me in this position is gaining space. It's preventing black's pieces from, you know, capturing or holding key diagonals. That c8 to h3 diagonal, that bishop's blocked out. And also, too, there's denying black a lot of squares, g6 and h6, and it kind of has a cramping effect on black's overall position. So queen e5, g4, h6, bishop f4, queen e4, queen takes queen, knight takes queen, rook e1, rook e8. And white has an overwhelming position. All the engines will confirm that here. Black has done pretty much the best he could, in my opinion. I mean, after he made his certain decisions, you know, he was pretty much dedicated. I mean, there was no backing out. So given the moves that black played early, and again, you can, if you're interested in a thorough analysis with just about every possible idea looked at, then you should see my webpage. But anyway, now we've reached the chess games problem of the day. And just to let you know, this was the problem of the day for Wednesday, April 3rd, 2013. It's white to move and win. I'm going to stop talking for just a minute. If you would like, you can pause the video and try to guess what the winning move for white should be. Okay, if you did, like I said, you pause the video, and you know, you had a couple of seconds there, and hopefully you paused the video so you take as long as you wanted to. Did you guess the winning move, and did you figure out what it was? Actually, my webpage shows there's several winning moves there for white: g3, f3, g5, f3, etc., etc., etc. But easily the best move there is this one: bishop takes h6. Black's got to take now. If he doesn't take, he just goes down a ton of pawns with no compensation at all. G takes h6, that's box or forced. Rook takes h6, king g7, rook g6 check, king h8. It doesn't matter what black plays here. I think the correct move was king h7. King f8 loses by force. This is kind of cute here. King f8 check. Rook takes knight check. And that's just horrible. I mean, that's useless. Black should resign there. So that's not going to work. After rook to g6 check, I think black could have also played king h7, but the computer analysis again shows rook e3. There's an idea of just rook h3 with a simple edge of the board mate. Knight f2, bishop g8 check. These are all computer moves. King h8, rook e8. And again, that's, you know, white's won massive amounts of material, and black's probably going to have to play giveaway just to keep from getting mated. And if you don't understand those moves, that's because they're engine moves. Those were found with engines. And a lot of times the engine moves are kind of surprising. If you're not used to engine moves, if you analyze a lot with an engine, then I think you get used to the idea that the engine is going to find a totally surprising move. But if you don't analyze with an engine, or you've not done a lot of that, then you may be shocked by the choice of the engines. But anyway, just going back to the game, king h8, rook, after bishop takes, let's just review this again. The key, what actually happened in the game. Bishop takes h6 exclam. And again, this is a stock combination. Anytime all of your pieces are pointed at the enemy king, and also too, notice the very sad state of the queen bishop and queen rook, not in the game at all. So basically black's the knight is pinned to the rook, and I mean black's, you know, he's just in bad shape. Bishop takes h6, g takes h6. Black had to take, otherwise he's going down pawns. Plus also there was the threat of white would just back up his bishop here and call checkmate. So not taking really wasn't an option. Rook takes h6 check, king g7, rook g6, king h8. It really didn't matter anymore, rook e3. Here black resigns because white's main threat is rook h3 checkmate. It's all over. There's no reason to continue the game. Well, I hope you enjoyed my video. That about wraps it up. I hope you enjoyed the video. And I hope you'll support my if you really enjoy my video and you want to, that you'll support my webpage building efforts and also my videos. And if you want to do that, go to the PayPal website. That's www.paypal.com and make a contribution. My email, and that's how you make a contribution, is LifeMasterAJ@yahoo.com. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. Now, I hope you enjoy the webpage. If you have any feedback, please write me too. Even if you're not going to make a contribution and you want to make a feedback, good, bad, or otherwise, I always want to hear that. And if you have any suggestions, let me know. Write me at LifeMasterAJ@yahoo.com. Again, that's LifeMasterAJ@yahoo.com. Thank you for watching my video and have a good day.